Today's reflection is on the second letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 7 to 10. When I am weak, then I am strong. Enigmatic words of St. Paul. What could be their meaning, especially for us, followers of Christ? The wisdom of God usually contradicts the wisdom of man. For us human beings, to be strong means to be able to do things all by ourselves, without help from others. At the plain physical level, it means being able to lift heavy things, to be able to overcome or unarm someone who is attacking us. In one word, it means to be in control of our life. This is the understanding of every human being, from every creed and race. Only in Christianity does the idea exist that someone is strong when one is weak. And that idea comes directly from St. Paul, who teaches us out of his own personal experience that when one is at one's weakest, one is most dependent on the Lord, who is infinitely stronger. And therefore, that one can lean on God's strength and not on one's own in order to conquer any and every adversary. What a teaching! And the teaching comes in the context of Paul's earnest prayer to God to be freed from his thorn in the flesh, whatever kind of thorn that was. Paul's plea to the Lord to be delivered from his thorn is in keeping with our human tendency to seek relief from suffering. No one loves suffering for suffering's sake, and Paul is no different. He asked God 3 times to be delivered from a certain kind of suffering. And 3 times God said no. God was preparing him to understand a profound truth, which St. Paul himself will verbalize for us at the end of today's passage. And that is, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This divine response to the human cry for help shifts the focus from the removal of suffering to the sufficiency of God's grace. It suggests that God's grace provides what is necessary for us believers to endure suffering. It also teaches us that human weakness becomes the ideal platform for God's power to be displayed the best. Paul's reaction to God's answer transforms him. Rather than continuing to plead for the removal of the thorn, he embraces his weaknesses, boasting about them, because they have now become the very means through which God's power is manifest in his life. In other words, true strength for him is not the absence of weakness, but is rather the presence of God's power in his weakness. It is only when Paul understands this truth that he learns the art of making the right kind of prayer. Now he no longer asks to be freed from the thorn or from anything that causes him inconvenience. He asks for the strength to accept and endure the thorn, because he has understood that the will of God is sovereign and that the best thing for him is to embrace that sovereign will. All of us experience thorns in our life, particularly spiritual thorns, that seem to distance us from God and to cause us to be under the power of Satan. We can't see any good in such thorns, and we want to be freed from them. But just because we cannot find a good reason for these thorns in our life, it does not mean that there is no reason for them, or rather that God has no reason for them to cause us discomfort during our earthly journey. The best thing to do, therefore, is to ask God for the strength to endure and to trust Him to be faithful to do what He said to Paul. My grace will be sufficient for you, and my power will be made perfect in your weakness. So, the next time one of your prayers is not answered the way you would like it to be answered, understand that though you may not perceive it, there is a reason for your thorn. And remember, if the Lord responded in the negative 3 times to someone like Paul, you must not expect to be treated differently. If the Lord denies your request, give Him the liberty to determine what is best for you, because there is simply nothing better.
I strain ahead to the finish line to fulfill the mission Christ entrusted to me. No passing reward will be given me, but life lived on high with Christ Jesus the Lord. I have suffered hardship, sickness, hate, with distress, but all for the love of my Lord. I strain ahead to the finish line to fulfill the mission Christ entrusted to me. No passing reward will be given me, but life lived on high with Christ Jesus the Lord. The life I now live is no longer my own. It is Christ Jesus living in me. I strain ahead to the finish line to fulfill the mission Christ entrusted to me. No passing reward will be given me, but life lived on high with Christ Jesus the Lord. I have pleaded with tears that you imitate me, and hold fast to all I taught you.